Hello, Tom Levecchia here with the latest edition of the New Theory podcast. This has been a guest, a friend. This has been a guest who arguably I've been wanting to get on for about like 2 years now. And good guy, Rich Valdes. He is host of This America. He's also a producer over at Life, Liberty, and Levin. Rich Valdes, welcome to the New Theory podcast. How you doing today?
What's up, Tom? Great to be with you. It's always a pleasure. It's been too long since we've connected.
Agreed. So what I like now, what I love about Rich is, and we may not even agree on like all politics, but what I like is you can have a discussion, Rich. It could be meaningful. You can have an active disagreement, but you still can be friends, right? On top of that, he's in a blue state. Your video cut out, Rich, but we'll continue. We're in a blue state in New Jersey. He is, Latin American, which historically, has been, and I want to talk about that. He kind of gets heat for that, or not as maybe as much, but I remember when he first started voicing opinion about Governor Christie, because I've been following him for years. And I do want to talk about that because I don't believe in identity politics. And then lastly, what I'm going to focus on is, and New Theory, we talk to anybody that we want to talk to, and we want to hear anybody's point of view that we think is meaningful. And I think the crust is going to be, where does a conservative party and movement go? So, Rich, welcome to New Theory Podcast. How you doing today? Oh, your audio cut out. You hit the mute button, buddy.
Boom. How about that?
There you go. So, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, brother. Thank God.
All right. So, I want to trace first back your roots in terms of politics. So I know you were hooked up with Christie. Kind of go through that, and then how did that progress along?
So for me, it all started back, I've been a small business owner for a long time. I had a barbershop. That's how I got in the game with anything. When I was 16, my brother made a loan to me and helped me start a barbershop that I was like, I can't believe you're willing to put this money into me, because I'm still in high school. I was in my senior year of high school. And he was like, listen, you could do it. You could do it after school. We'll build it slow. He found a salon that was going out of business. It had the equipment. The lease was there. So eventually I ended up transferring out of my senior year of high school during the daytime and going to high school at night to finish high school, and then going to barber school during the day. And I did that. I got into business and I made a little money, and I said, you know what, I'm going to get into the cell phone business. I had a buddy of mine from high school that was in the cell phone business. And he said, you know what, this is huge. It's blowing up right now. And I did. I got into the cell phone business, and, I made a little money. I lost some money. But the bottom line was, I was in West New York, New Jersey, and the local politicians would come by, and they had different programs for small business owners, and there was a lot of outreach. So you start to get involved, and I started to realize, it doesn't matter what your politics are. Politics is a part of business. Correct. And when you're in business, whatever you're doing, there's going to be an impact somehow politically. Yes. So I said, okay, no problem. I started to get involved. I saw what was going on, and I just had my own natural inclinations. As a barber, I liked making money. I realized, look, I stood there all day. I would work 10, 12, 13, 14 hours a day. Again, as a teenager, I was still a teenager. I was only 19 at this time. Yeah. And I realized, you know what? I don't like having to pay you or anybody else, Uncle Sam in particular, taxes. I don't like this idea, and when you're a small business owner at the time, I believe the rate was 39% of what I was making was going back into the government. Yeah. And I said, man, this isn't cool. So, it's like $3.90 out of every $10 I make is not mine. Yeah. And I didn't like it. So I naturally gravitated toward the Republican Party, because they were always talking about cutting taxes. Now, they didn't always do it, but they did. So I was, naturally, or I guess life made me into a fiscal conservative. Then you couple that with my upbringing, as my parents were born on the island of Puerto Rico. I was born in Brooklyn, moved over to Jersey when I was 12. And I realized, there were so many things about our culture that are naturally conservative. We just, we go to church on Sundays, we pray, it's a big part. Italians are very much the same way, Correct. Yeah, you don't have a holiday. Having a holiday is like having mass sometimes, right? You have all the people, there's always prayer. So I think to myself, to me, it was a natural fit. Now, again, may not have been that way historically, but, in the election of George W. Bush in 2000 and 2004, there was a strong emphasis on evangelical Christians. Yep. So, I was a churchgoer. I actually was a volunteer with the Bush campaign, worked on the campaign in New Hampshire in 2004. So I've become more politically active as I got, older into my, early 20s. And so being in small business, getting involved with that, I also interned for Congressman Scott Garrett, who at the time in New Jersey's 5th District, he was the most conservative member of Congress. And I didn't know that, and it wasn't why I went there. Yeah. It was just simply because I agreed with his positions on most issues. So because of that, to me, it seemed like a natural fit. And people did begin to, come at me saying, but how could you do it? How could you be a Boricua Latino and support Republicans? And I thought, how could you not? Yeah. How could you ever align with the party of, tax and spend liberalism? It doesn't match any of my values as a Hispanic, as a Latino, and overall as an American.
Yeah. So there's a lot to unpack there. So I agree with you in terms of, if you look at the core tenets of like maybe ethnicity, background, culture, and this is documented that the Italian culture, Italian American culture, Hispanic culture, Latin culture, historically Catholic. If you're a Catholic, you are theoretically pro-life and about family values, that kind of stuff. So and I think on both sides there's been some loosening. We could talk about that. So you lean towards obviously and just to give some color, folks, for your younger people, there was a nice run with the Republicans, Contract with America. It swung right back in 96. There was kind of, I know there's a Clinton bopping around, but aside from Clinton, there really was a tenet. There really was an appetite to kind of go back right a little bit, like we saw from 16 to 19. So, history repeats itself, right? So my one question is, and you were always vocal when you worked with Christie, or at least were shared his views and that kind of stuff. And he was a Republican in a blue state, and you got a lot of shit for it. I never understood, and you kind of touched on it. Why can't you be Republican? Like I'm missing. Like to me, that's racist. Yeah. To me, that's
of course
classist.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, Chris Christie is a great example. A lot of people disagree with him, and there's times where I disagree with him as well. But one thing I could say is that I think he was a really good governor. He brought a lot of things that brought a lot of value to the state of New Jersey. You're talking about a 2% constitutional amendment that said there's a 2% property tax cap in New Jersey. That was huge. Yeah. Some people take exception to the fact that now public employees, teachers included, have to contribute 1.5% of their salary to cover their medical benefits. But again, I was a guy, I came in, so again, I worked in my own business, and then I went into corporate America and I worked there for a while, moved into higher education as a manager and doing marketing and stuff like that. And it was from there where the Christie campaign needed some help with higher education. And it wasn't really anything huge, but I helped them out. And then when they got in, they needed some different people to join the administration. And I interviewed for a couple of different jobs and ended up landing with a role with the New Jersey State Department of Children and Families, and worked on something called the Family Success Centers. And what I liked about it was the idea behind these were, everybody labeled Christie some sort of evil tyrant because he was slashing social programs, after school programs, all sorts of programs. Yeah. And nobody wants to do that. But it became a situation where we had way more debt than we had income. And he was trying to balance the budget. And he did every single year, except for the 1 year where the Democrats played hardball and we had a government shutdown. And eventually he won again. Yeah. So I think delivering a balanced budget every single year that you're in office is a key part of being a good governor. And we had to do that. And the program that I was in charge of in Northern New Jersey, to me, was great because it was really built on the premise of, if you give someone a fish, they eat for a day. If you teach someone how to fish, they eat for a lifetime. Correct, and that's what we did in these family success centers. They were not designed to put anybody into any particular group other than, whatever it is. You could be a business owner that owns a small media company that's growing. You could be a salesperson. You could be a radio person. You could be a lawyer. You could be a homeless person. It wasn't designed on your income. It was based on what are your goals with your family in this community. So it could be in Alpine, New Jersey, or it could have been in Newark, New Jersey. And we had them all over. And that was the goal, was to really strengthen families, strengthen communities, because the idea was the government's here to support you if you want the support, but we're not here to tell you what to do.
Which makes sense. Italians say eat the eggs, not the chicken. Okay, so now let's go over to 16. So there's 12 candidates beginning of the campaign series. They're all on stage. Who are you backing early Early in the campaign. And be honest, Rich, don't say Trump right away.
No.
Hold on really quick.
Absolutely.
I have a clip. Hold on. I have a clip from I was on TV. I predicted Trump was going to win the nomination, so I'll share that with you. I know you get a good laugh, but give me who'd you put your chips on back then?
So, honestly, I typically try not to jump on with anybody in a primary, but I did favor, again, ideologically, Ted Cruz is like a rock star. He and I think, see eye to eye on so many things.
Yeah.
But I also liked Marco Rubio's delivery. I thought, he was, I liked the way he delivered it, but sometimes I felt he was too centrist, where he was too willing to capitulate on his values and work with the other side. You need that in government. You absolutely need it. Yeah. But sometimes you need the other side as well, where you're just like, you know what, I'm not going to fall back on this one. We're going to have to negotiate somewhere else because this means too much. But it didn't take long for Trump to come into the scene and really make his mark. I remember, and the way I saw it, literally, like the way I envisioned it when I was watching the debate, and it might have been the third debate, there was 15 people plus Trump. And to me, it looked like a line of people, almost like, when you would knock down dominoes. And I felt like each and every one of these people that I revered, like, listen, I helped start a charter school in Jersey City. Nice. And education policy is a big part of my background. I've always been a school choice advocate. And let me tell you this, and so is Jeb Bush, and he's somebody I've always looked up to.
I thought that you were going to say him.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say that I don't look up to him now. I still think he's been a great pioneer for education. However, seeing the way that he became undone, and again, envision this line of politicians all at the top of their game, and then in comes Trump at the front of the line, just starts smacking them one by one. Next. And I said, wow, listen, if there's going to be a leader of the free world, it's got to be that guy, because he just made all of these guys his sons, and I need that guy. That's Big Daddy. So I stuck with Trump after the primary. I said, you know what, that's my guy, because he's the only guy that's going to be able to sit across the table from somebody and say to any foreign threat that we may have, nope, not going to happen. And they're going to believe it.
All right. So we're going to go with, we're going to assume certain things, not to gloss over, not that it's important, but so Trump gets elected, a lot of different policies, a lot of different things that he does. And we'll get to that in a minute. So it's really building the base and really having a nice run. So I want to say up until late 19, you're basically dancing a jig. And if you want to give some of the specific points, you were super happy about it as a conservative really quick, I believe he was the most conservative president, and you may disagree, since Reagan, in my opinion. I don't think anybody touched him.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly. And I think that's one of the reasons I was such a big advocate, and still am a big supporter and defender of the president, because actions speak louder than words. I don't care that he's orange. I don't care about his hair. I don't care about anything he says. Yeah. I really care about what he does. And the way he governed, the policies that were instituted during the Trump administration, bar none, hands down, were the most conservative policies we've seen in a generation.
Yeah, good point. Now, okay, and then so up until late 19, early 20, he was killing it. The economy was doing well. Appointed at that point 2 Supreme Court justices, which I believe was a huge win for conservatives. I might argue win for America, but okay, we're gonna keep it cool now. Right. Absolutely, I respect Rich, and again, we're allowed to disagree, which is a good thing. Obviously, I love what he did with the First Step Act. I love what he did. Sure. One of the things that like this gets glossed over is the urban enterprise zones. Like, I don't think people understand that you're gonna be able to open up that barber shop because Rich, sold his other business, bought a building in Plainfield, New Jersey, and now hey, you need a barber shop. Great. Why don't you come in? That guy or gal starts cutting hair. Now they start making a few bucks. They invest with their friend who's a financial advisor. So that's like, actually, I don't know why that wasn't the biggest. He did some great stuff within the Jewish community. He moved the, moved the embassy, has some peace treaties with like UAE and so forth, which like
peace in the Middle East actually became a thing.
And it sucks. And it sucks because, don't get me wrong, it's hard to look past the brashness. I get that, but there was a lot of good. And I come from, and you probably can imagine, Rich, a staunch Democratic Party, staunch Democrats and like there are a few things that keep me kind of centered. I'm becoming more of a libertarian these days. I think I'm going to grow a longer beard and move to Maine. But that's another discussion for another day. So now let's go to 2020, and so again, we're gonna qualify here today, and you can go back to my other podcast. There's arguably 10 things that are uneffable to F with Trump that we can agree and say, hey, you know what? This was good for the country. So we're going to check that box in the interest of time.
Sure.
Okay. Now COVID hits, and I get what he was trying to do. Decentralize United States of America Constitution. And also, Rich, respectfully, and it's not a bad thing. I'm hearing the undertone, the smarter people listening to this, you're starting to weave a constitutional background. Would you agree with that, with your thoughts?
Sure.
Ted Cruz was one hint. Working on Lebanon. Not a bad thing. I'm saying it's a good thing. But you are, would it fair to say you're a constitutionalist? Is that fair?
For sure. I literally read it every day. Not the whole thing, but parts of it. You got to check yourself, right? And that's the guide.
Well, so the people that are listening, if you heard Ted Cruz and you know where Rich works, if you didn't paste that together, you got to brush up on your politics. But anyway, so you're proud constitutionalist. I don't disagree with you. We need to have our best to create a perfect union. So with that being said, though, COVID hits, and I get it. It's a philosophy. You have 50 governors; they're elected. Decentralized resources. I'll give you your resources. Montana at the time was not as bad as New York City, so I actually don't disagree with his approach. However, I do thought there might have been either like national guidelines or something that just would have been like. And I know there were. But, and I'm not saying that mandates, there's a difference, but I felt like his response could have been a little better. Let's start off with, where do you think he could have did a little better job in terms of the COVID response from Rich Valdez's perspective?
Yeah, well, honestly, I look back and I look at it and I say, what was lacking? And I think maybe he should have replaced Dr. Fauci. I think leaning on somebody like Dr. Fauci that had such a storied history that was steeped, in my opinion, controversy with people looking back at how he handled the AIDS epidemic and things of that nature. So I think, but I believe Trump is a real fair guy, and he also weighed his options. He came into Washington and said, wow, these entrenched bureaucrats like this guy Comey, who got involved in the last election, the election he was in, right? And said, that there's this whole problem here with Hillary Clinton. We don't need a guy like this. And he dismisses Comey, and immediately they start impeaching him. So I think he realized early on, if I rock the boat too much and shake things up around here, they're going to come for my neck. So I got to play this cool politically. So I think he kept Fauci because Fauci would eventually become the fall guy, although he hasn't, right? They want to blame Trump for everything, but Fauci was really at the head of this thing, as well as Dr. Birx. So I think he may have added more people and sooner. I think he brought on Dr. Scott Atlas at the tail end of it. I think he could have brought him in a little earlier. So, maybe our good friend, Dr. Kassir. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, there you go.
Make everybody look good. I think it's important, though, that, we don't look at this and realize that I don't think it was a disaster. I think a big part of this was the media making problems for somebody they didn't like. And that's just the reality of it. We have to look at it for what it is. I think the other day, President Biden said, look, folks, this is going to take a long time. It's going to be many dark days ahead. And that may be his approach. Trump is a salesman. He's a builder. He's used to, unveiling projects and hyping things up. And again, just because I follow his career and I've always been a fan outside of politics. So I can say that, I appreciate his approach, and always the best is yet to come, trying to paint the rosy picture to show Americans that we have hope. I think Biden's approach, that it's gloomy, again, different approach. It's going to be the same outcome. Neither one of them is going to be able to temper the coronavirus with rhetoric.
Okay. So now, and good point. So you feel like, hey, he did a decent job, areas of opportunity. He could have brought Scott Atlas in a little earlier. Now, I do think, because I do watch Fox. I watch everything. I watch Fox,
sure.
Newsmax.
Me too.
I do watch CNN. I can't watch MSNBC. Sorry, Michaela.
That's the funniest
my
one.
Knees. Yeah. But I try to look at everything, right? So with Scott Atlas, what people didn't understand is he does believe in herd immunity, but didn't mean he wanted everybody to get it. So I think although some of the stuff with Scott Atlas, I don't agree. I don't like his approach, that kind of stuff. But He's not an idiot. He knows what he's talking about. Comes from Stanford of all places.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he got a little bit misunderstood. But here's my question though, strategically, and I want to kind of now go to strategy now. Trump had his base. You were voting for him no matter what. Like Rich Valdes is voting for him. Like he joked around about the Fifth Avenue stuff.
Yeah.
He's voting. You're voting for him. I felt he pandered to the base too much. I don't know who, like Hope Hicks, whoever, like his strategist is like, you got to double down. You got to double down. Conservatives done. Check. Right. Did a lot for the African-American community. We got to get that community up from 9 to 13%. The Latin community, great. South Florida, like you don't like, there was in Miami, there's places in Miami that went red that weren't just Cuban. They were Puerto Rican and from other places. And Puerto Rico played a big result in this election because a lot of Puerto Ricans left after Maria. And I think that had to do with, ironically, had to do with him getting Florida. But anyway, because there's so much to unpack. So what I'm saying is, typically when you're a businessman, you're an entrepreneur, when you got 12 people, right, you're going to have 3 rock stars, you're going to have 4 or 5 middle Michaels, and you're going to have 3 or 4 people that you're going to have to crap can because they're just not. So in order to get your organization to where it needs to go, you need to move the middle. So why did he double down on his base versus maybe going after people like me? I am a Democrat. I'm a pro-business Democrat. There's 2 things that keep me from being a Republican. One is I am pro-choice, respectfully, and number 2 is I'm very big on LGBTQ plus rights. I'm not saying Republicans aren't, but I'm just saying I found a home on the left here, right? So those are the 2 things that's stopping me from coming on your show, right? So, yeah, I hope you have me anyway, but you get what I'm saying. But everything else, I definitely lean right or libertarian, right? So with that being, I'm just more. The government should be in the business of, I think we can agree the government should be in the business of marriage, just my opinion. I just think, and taxes. And we should have such a small government that when the president is elected, you and I call each other and laugh because it's meaningless to us. You can leave. Right. I think we probably agree on those grounds, right? But what I'm getting at is, I'm sorry for talking too long about it though. What I'm getting at is, okay, so with I don't know how to say this. With Trump, why did he go for me? Why didn't he go for like he tried to scare me? Like, well, the riots are going to bleed into the suburbs. No, they're not. Why didn't he go for me? I'm sitting there. I have my hand raised. I'm open to a date. I'm single politically. Why didn't he go for me? Why didn't he go for me?
I would push back on that and say I think he did. I think the reason that he got more votes than any sitting president in the history of the United States is because guys like you, maybe not you in particular, but guys like you that said, hey, you know what? I'm not dating anybody politically, and I'm open to a dance with the MAGA movement. There's a lot of people that jumped on the Trump train, not because of Trump per se, but because they, like you, they said, you know what? I'm Italian. I come from an Italian family. Look at what happened in Long Island, both Suffolk County and Nassau County. Those guys were Democrats forever and a day. But all of a sudden, they didn't stop being Democrats. These are Democrats that believed in America first. These are Democrats that believed in seeing the economy flourish and said, no, we have to say no to gangs like MS-13. We have to push out Antifa and all of these other radical elements that are growing on the left unchecked. So what happened? I think that did become the base. So in effect, I think President Trump doesn't really, he is the de facto leader of the Republican Party, but he's really the leader of the MAGA Party or the Patriot Party or whatever you want to call it, because it's a mixed bag. I would bet you if you ask people who were in this MAGA movement, hey, listen, who did you vote for before Trump? I bet you 60% of them would say Obama.
Yeah, good point. And it's interesting enough is if you really follow politics, I believe my views and definitely Rich's views are traditional. Look this up: traditional Democrat beliefs, not Democrat beliefs.
Yeah, traditional
Democrat. Yeah. So that's why sometimes it gets conflated. All right. So now I want to talk about where the conservatives are going. So I don't want to make this all about Trump. We all talked about him enough. We have a new president, new administration. We're doing some new things. So I want to first talk about, because I want to get your feel. And it's funny because I always think of you once in a while. And I want to run some names by you. I want to see where you land. Okay. Ben Shapiro, right? So I do watch a show. He wasn't a Trump guy in 2016. but then he liked his conservative values, pushed him in 2020. I kind of feel he's hedging a little bit, because he's running a business. I get it. But where do you land on Ben Shapiro as a conservative thought leader?
I think he's terrific.
Okay. How about Candace Owens?
Love her.
Okay. So so to me, these are some of the newer faces. What do you think of Dave Rubin?
Dave Rubin, smart guy, really smart guy. He's talked to him for about 30 seconds once, right before I put him on with Levin, and he really brilliant guy. I love the fact that he's a Canadian. He's not American.
Yeah.
He was a radical leftist on a show that attacked me some years ago. He used
the
to
Young Turks. That's right, Jersey-based show.
Yeah, so those guys, they took some shots at me, and it was cool to see somebody from Dave Rubin and from that crew actually wake up and say, you know what? Wow, there's a whole lot more to life when you actually think beyond the surface. And I think he brings a lot of insight to the national conversation.
Now this you may differ. What about Joe Rogan? What are your thoughts on his? I know he's not a political thought leader, but just in terms of.
I don't really follow him too much, but the episodes that I've seen, he's a terrific broadcaster. I mean, hands down, he's got one of the best podcasts out there, at least by numbers.
Yeah,
he's
true.
A killer.
So now the part of the reason why I wanted you on, many reasons, but the main reason, where does the conservative party go now? Does it splinter off? Constitutional Party, Trump, Valdes, 2024. Does it unify, retrench, and come in one voice? And this is big. Because this is going to be something that's going to be played 4 years from now, and you and I are going to be on, and you're either going to be super right or you're going to be super wrong. But either way, I'd love to hear it. Where did it come?
I think the deal is like this. In 2010, which is now 11 years ago, in 2010, we saw the Tea Party. Yeah. And there was the emergence of the Tea Party, and they had gotten all of this gravitas, and they brought people, and it's the same crew. It's your libertarians, your constitutionalists, the people that are fed up. I've had enough. I'm a Democrat. I drive trucks, but you know what? I can't allow this to happen to my country anymore. Yeah. And they all got together and they ousted a bunch of people from Congress, and they made their move. Now, in recent years, we've seen the same thing. Some call it the Tea Party of the left. You've got the Squad, AOC, all out crazy, her crew. Now, these people come in and they do their thing to radicalize the Democrat Party, and they've been extremely successable. They're no longer the fringe. They make up a good amount of the Democrat Party and are controlling policymaking. Now, Trump comes in with the same disenfranchised people, similar to the Obama model of people that were disenfranchised, and everybody and their mother came out and said, we're voting for Obama because this is the change we want. Same thing happened with Trump. He was the same thing, just in a different direction.
Correct.
And people went with that. And I think it likely would have happened again. And it was an extremely close election. So to discount anything, I think would be foolish. But all that being said, you still there, Tom?
Yeah.
You got me? Okay, cool. I had a little flash on my side. Anyway, to move forward, I think we're going to do what we've always done. So you always have these rebounds and these peaks and valleys in politics. So now we're going into the battle becomes for the House. I think we have to retake the House. We have to eliminate Nancy Pelosi's power. We saw 10 Republicans, very diverse ones, get elected in this last House election. So I think we're going to see more of that. I'm hopeful that Trump will be a part of that and continue to move that forward, because conservatism has always been here since Reagan, since before Goldwater, and it's going to be here. There's always going to be that group. And to me, the battle it's a culture war over how many conservatives do we produce in life, and do we get them to become conservative younger. So a lot of people, it takes them to have a couple of kids before they go, oh man, I probably want to send my kids to Catholic school, or I want to do this, or I want to do that, because I don't want my kids to grow up in that area. I'm going to move to the suburbs. Yeah. And some people choose not to have kids and they stay in the city and they promote other agendas. So I think, and all of that stuff, honestly, it becomes a debate that occurs in the classroom. And it used to be just on university campuses, but now that conversation's happening earlier and earlier, to the point where you now have, kids that are in kindergarten learning very controversial topics like the 1619 Project and other things. So I think this is a real culture war. It's an information war in many ways, and we have to get into that fight at that level. So we're going to see this play out in a lot of ways, but I think conservatives are in for the long haul. I think we're going to continue to see gains with conservatives. The problem I think that we face, the biggest challenge, is the Republicans that don't embrace conservatism, that embrace the Washington culture of elitism, of a ruling class, where, Mitch McConnell is very chummy and buddy with Chuck Schumer, and likewise with Joe Biden. And it's this old boys network where it's like, hey, it's a bunch of rich old white guys that have served in Washington for 30 plus years. And that is the political class that I think we need to break, not because they're old, not because they're white, but because they're swamp creatures from Washington, D.C.
That's a great point. So, and I think we would agree that maybe even net, there was somewhat of a red wave, right? Because you have the House that made some major gains towards red, which I think there's a chance of it next go around losing the House. I don't want to discount Georgia, but there was only 2 seats, and Georgia's a interesting state. It's a migrating state. So like it's now a battleground, right? So like. So you can't be like, well, they got the House, they got the Senate. Well, it's not that simple. Like you got 2 seats, and that was enough to tip it. But there's still a lot of red in the Senate. You have a lot of red in the House. I think once that flips red, which it will, it's my prediction. Then you're really going to get a battle. I don't super love, and I'm going to get shit for this. I don't super love that all 3 are blue right now. I just don't. I don't love it because there's certain things I don't disagree with. I don't want to pay more in taxes, and there's certain things. But anyway, we'll get to that in a second. So the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is, so he got 74 million votes, right? At least 74 million votes. And to be candid, I think those votes were for him. I don't think it was just, hey, I'm Republican, hey, I'm for Trump, right? And he's got the ball right now. Whether we like it or not, he's got the ball. What does he do with that ball? Does he carve out a subset conservative Tea Party, constitutional party? Does he start a third party? Because he has the infrastructure and the business acumen for it. Maybe pick up some of those libertarians. Give me what Rich Valdes. He calls it Rich Valdes. You're your new hope picks. What does he do next?
Yeah, I think my advice would be, Mr. President, yes, you could start a new third party, but I think it gives us way much more of obstacle. We have to go uphill with that. Let's do what you're good at, and let's do a corporate takeover. Let's take over the Republican Party. Spit out the ones we don't want, keep the ones we do, backfill with real patriots that are going to do the right thing, that are going to embrace Americanism more than anything, and move forward that way. It's the easiest thing to do, I think. Maybe it's not. Some might argue and say, no, you have too many elected officials that have been voted into the party structure. Ronna McDaniel was reelected as chair of the party. She was very supportive of Trump, but then she wasn't. So these could be obstacles that are that's the pushback that I may get. So I think if that has to be looked at, and if it looks like the path of least resistance is taking over the Republican Party in a corporate takeover, then great. If not, then crush them by doing your own thing. And that's likely, I would think that's probably Trump's his inclination is to do that, as well as probably get heavy into media, TV, social media, maybe radio, whatever it be, but different mediums, so that we can totally reject CNN, we can totally reject MSNBC. And these are organizations that are flailing to begin with. They don't make money. They exist for the sake of spreading a message, because CNN has been in the red for a very long time, to the point where AT&T is looking to dump it.
Yeah. And I know with Fox, right? And I know there's like almost like different lines. You look at like foxnews.com, and it's actually, you can check it, go online. There's different organizations. It's not as right as you think in terms of, the website. Then, you got Tucker. Oh God, my girlfriend loves her show. The blonde woman, what is her name again? After Tucker.
Shannon Bream. Oh, Laura Ingraham.
Ingram Angle.
Yeah.
So you got some like opinion politics there that, have been pro-Trump. I like Brett Baer too. I do watch a lot of the shows.
In my opinion, it's not about Fox being perfect, but it's probably better than all of the other ones.
I do like a lot of the angles that they offer. But so interesting enough is that there's a war within a war, because Trump is pretty pissed at Fox right now, because he thinks the collective, not an individual, he thinks the collective kind of bailed on him. And I know like I'm hitting home and how you answer, because it's your home. But some people felt that Fox kind of bailed on him a little bit, and he even said it too. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think I wouldn't look at it that way. I think the president's always, what I've observed, always said, please cover me fairly.
Yeah.
That's really always been his request. Just be fair.
Yeah.
And I think when people are not fair, he'll call them out for not being fair. I don't think he wants them to be favorable. I think he just says, wow, what happened to this? You know, we have to remember, what was the purpose for Fox to exist? Why did Roger Ailes create this thing? It was because he realized there's a vacuum here. People want to hear about America. They want to hear about analysis and opinion that is right of center. And there was a need for it. And obviously they're there. They're losing. They're bleeding out a little bit now with other competitors like OAN and Newsmax stepping in. So it's creating a competitive marketplace. Being a free market type of guy, I appreciate that stuff. That's why I'm here with New Theory.
I love it.
More media is better.
All right. So to conclude, give us some of your predictions, 2024. Who are some of the names that are going to pop up?
I think you're going to see Josh Hawley and Nikki Haley. You may see a draft movement for Ron DeSantis, who in my opinion will probably be the best one, hands down.
Wow, that's a ball. That's a ball. I like that. That's balls right there. Mark Rich's words. Keep going.
Yeah, I think he would be great. Again, he's already said he won't do it because he's got much more work to do in Florida. But again, you never know if people will twist his arm and he can get into the race. So I think you're going to see some of that. A lot of people are making predictions about Trump and Trump family members. I don't see that one yet. I mean, obviously, if Trump says, hey, I'm running, I think people are going to clear the field because he's got more of a shot than anybody else of winning. Yeah. And the experience of going against Biden and any pitfalls that were missed this time, he's going to be prepared for them a second time around. But I really don't think that's the case. 4 years is a long time for him to wait. I think he could do way more, starting a media empire, going into different things, continuing the rally movement. Trump, in my opinion, once he's done with his vacation of coming back to civilian life, I think he's going to be way more of a threat to the Democrat Party as a private citizen than he ever was as a president.
That's great. So, Rich, you wear a few different hats. How can we find you? What show we should watch you on? Let our audience know about you.
Anytime, man. I'm on every social media at Rich Valdes with an S. Rich Valdes with an S. And you can get me on the radio. You can get me on podcasts. If you can download the This Is America podcast, subscribe. That's awesome. We're doing really well. We constantly chart in the top 200 most listened to podcasts on the Apple News Politics chart.
Oh, wow.
Which is really thrill for me.
That's a hard nut to crack, guys.
Yeah, it's hard to stay in there. I mean, a couple of times I got into the top 100. My peak was number 25, and I'm super proud of that. So yeah, give it a whirl, if you will. Give us a shot. We do 3 episodes every week, 30 minutes, 10 minutes per segment, 3 different topics. We try to hit hard with the analysis, the opinion, the passion, and then we keep it moving.
Love it. We'll put links below. Rich, thank you for being on the New Theory podcast.
You got it, brother. Good to see you, Tom. Thanks to New Theory.
Same here, brother.